Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming partial penumbral lunar eclipse taking place in the sign of Libra on the 25th of March 2024. Now, like all eclipses, especially lunar eclipses, this is a very powerful karmic period when something in life, destiny herself, karma itself is focusing our attention. It is focusing the eyes of our soul, especially the moon, towards a truth that needs to be seen or observed by us. And this can also be linked to very important completions, endings, terminations, something crystallizing basically. But all of these also involve us getting a much greater awareness of the matter, whatever is closing, completing, finishing, etc. And also, what is very important is that this full moon, because a lunar eclipse is a full moon, holds various different celestial conversations. Now, it doesn't hold very precise, very exact main aspects. It does hold a trine. So the moon holds a trine with Pluto, but it is not very exact, even though it is relevant and it is definitely operational because it is not a negligible energy. However, it is, Pluto, even though it's a trine, that doesn't mean it's a very easy energy. However, it is important. And also, Pluto delivers the truth factor, or it amplifies it, it magnifies it, so to speak. But that also means that the sun holds a sextile with Pluto. So, what we do with this truth will matter a lot. And what we do also is very suggestive of the sun in Aries, the self, initiation or reaction or whatever, and Libra, the choice. So it will depend very much how we take in this energy and anything that might conjure up in our lives, or most importantly, collectively speaking, because there is more than one side to the same coin. There is a very strong emphasis on this. Not because it's Libra, the duality of Libra, or, the scales of justice. They're not stable because they always weigh. They always try to present, the situation as it is, but on all sides of it. So again, there's not just one side to this energy. But this is kind of positive because it gives us the choice. If we embody wisdom, if we embody a certain kind of um, empathy, why the empathy? Well, there is so many planets in Pisces at the time of this eclipse, and Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius has a certain kind of empathy of its own, where the collective should matter to the individual and vice versa. This openness, the two opposing forces, the individual and the collective, the glyphs of Aquarius, the dichotomy of it. If they're open to one another, then the energy can turn very harmonious. Hence the sextile, Pluto sextile with the sun. Whatever truth, whatever something important that is being highlighted at this moment, if we take it the right way, if we look at it for what it truly is, then we can turn it into a big blessing in our lives, regardless of what it is and how it plays out. Now, another, let's say, more minor celestial conversation is that Mars in the sign of Pisces holds a quincunx with the moon. So a quincunx makes it somewhat uncomfortable because Mars is in the sign of Pisces. So action Mars, the action, the initiation, the I am and I am doing this principle is in the unconscious realm of Pisces. So it doesn't take action its usual Martian way, but it has to go through the ethereal realms of Pisces. So unconscious or hidden intent, or the realm of the unseen. And this might represent that we might not know just immediately what to do with the effects of the eclipse, whatever they are going to be, both individually and collectively. In order for us to know what to do with it, we need to either search in the realms of the unconscious, the unseen. And when I say unseen, collectively speaking, this can even represent actual secrets, or secrets of people being divulged, becoming visible, us as in the collective, being able to look at them, observe them, become aware of them. The full moon, the lunar eclipse, yes, but it's a full moon, so it does reveal something. And Mars in the sign of Pisces is really about that. So some secrets, something in the realm of the hidden are going to be revealed, and it is us who have to decide what we do with them. Fearing them or making them worry us excessively is, I can tell you even immediately, that is the wrong choice. But again, it's Pisces and the personal decision factor of attached to this energy, let's say. So the quincunx means that it's weird, it's unusual. We really need to go deep into the matter to make sense of it, especially at first glance. Moon, quincunx, Mars. So, and at the same time, the quincunx, it can be very, very fated. It may not seem fated at first glance, but it definitely turns as we follow up the energy, the more fated it reveals itself to be. So again, and Mars in Pisces, sometimes the best action is inaction. Pisces is where we contain our externalization tendencies, let's say it like that. Whatever energy we want to uh, put outside. Sometimes Pisces is the prison, the containment, the detriment, basically. So very many times the right action, the right thing to do is to not take part of something, or not react to it, or not take action. Many times to be patient, or many times, especially Mars and Pisces, to contain the reaction, dwell on it, as in analyze it, even from either psychological, emotional, or spiritual perspective. And then after we have a certain kind of either clarity or crystallization of the matter within us, then that action might be very, very inspired, or reaction. Blessed even. Another aspect which is minor is that the sun holds trine, or better said, trines, on one hand with Pallas Athena. Let me just show you this energy. So here we have the sun, and it holds a trine on one hand with Pallas Athena in the sign of Sagittarius, and that is a blessing. It is, after all, a trine, and Pallas Athena has a lot to do with wisdom. In the sign of Sagittarius is wisdom within the legal field, the law, international matters, long distance travel, aviation, higher education, higher knowledge, higher research, even, you know, the research itself, okay, it's Scorpio or Virgo or something like that. But what is done with the research, that is very much Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is always linked to knowledge, the highest octaves of knowledge. The Gemini Sagittarius axis. Gemini, the brute way of obtaining the knowledge. When, for example, when something is in experimentation stages, Sagittarius is when the theorem or whatever is proved already, and it is like a reliable knowledge. So wisdom, the principle of wisdom in this part of the sky, this is good, because this is the deepest wisdom. And this also represents foresight. Sun in Aries using that wisdom. And the other trine is Varuna in the sign of Leo. Varuna is a dwarf planet, and it has to do with cosmic justice and balance. So I really, really like this energy because it is very much justice oriented, strongly justice oriented. Sagittarius, justice, legal system, courts of justice, judges, rulings, arbitrary matters, while Varuna is the planetoid itself, which represents cosmic justice. So justice from the as it is perceived on the divine planes, trining the sun, Aries. Now, this may not represent all that much miracle energy, in the sense that the most rudimentary expression is that this is the desire. Sun in the sign of Aries, this is the goal. Justice, equity, or to make something work, wisdom or justice or an aspiration, anything Sagittarius, transport, logistics, you know, especially in this present crisis, to make that work. It can just be an aspiration, but it can very well be something a bit more practical than that as well, a blessing or a celestial support, this Varuna. And this is a grand trine in that sense, but it's minor energy. It is not going to be all that much significant in the larger sense, but blessing is a blessing. We have to welcome it. And this means that the sun, which illuminates the moon at a full moon, is charged with these trines, and this is fire trine. And fire trine means that there is going to be some action here, legal action without a shadow of a doubt, but you know, it can be something important that, even though is maybe uncomfortable, it is still a blessing. Now, the other aspects are minor. These are truly minor astrological conversations where the sun, and again, it's the sun, one of the power players, holds a semi square with Uranus. Surprise, surprise, Uranus, chaos, instability, protest, revolution, and you know, sun in Aries. Very, very um action oriented and quick energy, warrior like energy. Uranus the rebel. So there is definitely some kind of unrest, revolution, truth seeking, truth fighting at play there. Or it can also represent that events are playing out so quickly that we will even struggle to keep up with them. Or, you know, this can also represent that, you know, there is the theme of the eclipse playing out that is occupying our attention, let's say both individually or collectively. And meanwhile, there's also some kind of external chaos. Uranus in Taurus, like some weather, wild weather, earth events, calamities, something that comes from nature, and it just adds to the stress factor. So there can also be that. And at the same time, the moon holds a square and a half, so a sesquiquadrate with Uranus. So Uranus is emphasized. Uranus is at the point of the hammer, so to speak. So this may represent a strong discomfort or anxiety or anxious energy, or, you know, there's the calm before the storm, but there is also that moment when you just expect the calm to be broken, when you know that the calm is living its last moments. This is that type of uncomfortable energy. So Uranus, again, um sesquiquad, a square and a half, with the moon in the sign of Libra, something reaches us as a surprise, as a shock. This can be financial energy, and this can be within alliances, partnerships, and love. There are surprises playing out, but again, this is the disruptive factor. This is the factor which, irritates our senses or tries to overwhelm our minds. But we need to dig deep within the realm of the soul or the spirit or psychology, or look at the situation from a very deep seeking sense way, because that is how we may put this energy to really, really good use, because it is ultimately fated. We just need to identify the fated element in it, and what fate herself, the universe, the divine, communicated, what it reflected upon us through this eclipse. And before I get straight to the eclipse, I just want to mention a few other celestial conversations that are not part of the eclipse, but they do color the sky significantly. One of them is Mercury on in its shadow path already. So it is preparing slowly but surely to go retrograde later on, but is conjunct Aries, dwarf planet Aries, rebellion, revolution, Mercury communication, especially Aries, Mercury and Aries, the head, heated battles, verbal battles, battles between information, principles, debates, arguments from the legal perspective. It is, and from the perspective of making choices and decisions. And now I speak more collectively, even though individually as well. You can imagine that all of that will need debates, all of that will need heated arguments, and people to the important power player people, basically, like politicians and the rest, to point out their vision and whatever they are fighting for, whatever principle, ideal, etc. Aries, the fight, and Libra, the principle, ideal. And Aries is the chaos. Aries is every voice has to be heard. Aries is also a creational energy where some solutions, some new realities can be born out of the fertility of chaos. Chaos when the heaven and earth unite, basically. Or another energy, and understand this more mythologically, not astrologically, the legend of Tiamat, the mother of chaos, the mother of everything that is material. Um, so this Mercury Eris conjunction is gonna make communication very, very heated. And because they're so close to Chiron, this can wound and will wound without a doubt, but sometimes clashes are needed for peace to take place. Another energy that is kind of important is that Mars holds a trine with dwarf planet Haumea at around 1 degree of Scorpio. That to me says surprising solutions that the universe, the divine, co-creates with us. You know, fate many times can be very, very surprising. Another energy at play is that Venus, very comfortable, loving it in the sign of Pisces, um, sextiles Jupiter, the lower benefic, the greater benefic, Jupiter being the greater one. And Jupiter is in Venus's home sign of Taurus. So this can be the power of hope, the power of faith, the power of miracles, the power of desiring good, desiring the greater good, desiring things filled with compassion, the Christ consciousness. All of us are one, the highest ideals in everything. This is a beautiful sextile that gives the support. And this can be a really good energy, romantically speaking, as well. Or this can be an energy of integration when we understand the emotion because we look at it from the highest possible perspective, Jupiter. You know, the realm of deep faith meets the realm of embodiment. So, from so very many perspectives, this is a really beautiful sextile that gives us the coping. Even though Venus herself does hold a semi-square with Pluto, so financially there is trouble, instability. There is also frustration, but you can imagine that the frustration is basically part of the picture, especially if we look at the tumultuous nature of this energy. So now let us get to the eclipse itself, to its symbolism, because Libra is justice, equity, fairness, decisions, choices, contracts, legally binding decisions, um, alliances, and on the world stage, everything that has to do with diplomacy, everything that has to do with international treaties that will become legally binding, and international courts of justice, even though all of these are also co-ruled by Sagittarius as well. And Jupiter is usually a planet we want to look at when something in the sky points to justice. And Jupiter is very close to Uranus. It is already a conjunction. So Uranus is the truth. Uranus is the awareness of the hard truths that are ongoing. Uranus is kind of objective. Jupiter is the opposite, very, very subjective. But Jupiter represents the highest ideal, so it has to be subjective. These two planets meet. So justice has to be real, one way or another. But at the same time, just if you look at the energy and not the symbolism, these planets will make things seem very, very urgent, a tiny bit anxious. And this is like quantum leap. Everything is fast forward, but they are in Taurus. So this fast forward has also a lot of limitations. You know what I mean? So it's really like a roller coaster ride, like a quantum energy. But the ruler of justice, Jupiter, is there. It is present in the equation, in the astrological equation, because it is active, activated by Uranus, but it itself is also activating Uranus back. So there, this is in the mixture. And the other element here is that we must understand that this is an eclipse. The ancients viewed the eclipse as a moment of crisis that changes everything. So you can imagine that this puts an end or a closure or sheds light on something which needs to come to an end, which needs to complete or needs to terminate. So this energy can very well bring peace, because Libra is the embodiment of peace as well. I am very hoping and hopeful that this will either represent a ceasefire or something that ultimately will turn into peace. But at the same time, you can imagine that an eclipse like this in Libra will also terminate existing diplomatic relationships, existing alliances, existing agreements, existing treaties are going to be nullified, especially big historical treaties that kept the world together in a certain configuration, with world powers being allied in a certain way. Now that ends. What comes after is to be seen later on, because Libra is also the host of a solar eclipse in the autumn. And after the lunar eclipse on the 8th of April, we have a total solar one in Aries. So that births something new without a shadow of a doubt. And whatever happens in Aries will influence Libra as well. So we can see the divine logic here with the endings and the beginnings, the alpha and the omega energy, so to speak. So this is gonna be shocking, surprising, and it will change the diplomatic landscape. But also, there are certain things done in courts of justice. Laws are changing. I would even go as far as, in some places, their constitution might undergo changes. Fundamental laws are changing. And here I'm speaking more about like secular laws. But individually speaking, this is partnership energy. You can imagine that maybe a big contract in your life, like work contract, professional, rent, or something that really, really matters and usually is long term in one's life, may come to an end because of reasons, either fate or you get to this decision to end something. So you can imagine how this will shake up events in our lives. This can also represent termination of an existing relationship. Um, and this is already happening. Of course it is, because the South Node is not just freshly in Libra. It's already at half of the sign. So it had a lot of effect already. It's halfway through, so to speak. So relationships are changing. Partners are realizing how both of them changed, maybe grew apart or grew differently. So relationships are ending the way they are now and transforming into something else. So this is, of course, is divorce energy and ending energy. So see how this might play out in your life. But of course, it might not necessarily have to target your relationship. For example, if this is like an 11th house, 4th house, someone else's, a very, very close person to use, divorce might influence you one way or another as well. But the most important part of this energy is that our own principles, ideals, and mental patterns that we use to form and attract relationships into our lives, those are changing, those are transforming. Some patterns are being eliminated because we are different, and they are leaving a space for us to create new ones, to look at what our present reality has transformed into already. Which new rules, tactics, principles, ideals work in the present. So this is really, really releasing the past, releasing that which no longer works. So this is why the semi-squares and the sesquiquadrates, regardless of what leads to a termination of something that used to be a permanent part of your, or a stable relationship or contract, job, rent, whatever, a termination is still not easy. Even if you understand why, even if there is acceptance of it, it still doesn't make it all that easy. Venus square, the half square Venus holds with Pluto. There is still an energy of either sadness, melancholy, or a certain kind of bitterness or a heartache, even if everything is positive. No, everything has its cycle and its role, its place in life. Even sadness, of course, that sadness is just a respect, a tribute we give to that which is ending. So, but ultimately, we must look at the blessing of this energy. What the ending does, where it leads us, where it guides us, what it says about us, what it says about the past that is going, that we are releasing, and what can that invite for our futures. So this is without a doubt, from so very many perspectives, a powerful self-reflection moment. Because of that Pisces conglomerate of planets, Mars, Neptune, Venus, and Saturn, and Venus is close to Saturn still. So a reality check. So whatever happens in our partnerships, or whatever our partnerships or contracts or alliances the other projects upon us, that says something also about us. Either that what they project is also existing within us, and we need to confront that, observe that, integrate that, accept that, or maybe something that irritates us, or we do not like what another person projects on us, there is a tendency for us to do the very same thing with another person. So this raises like an awareness of the self and our hidden invisible tendencies. But there will be a choice here as well with Libra, option or choice, without a shadow of a doubt. Maybe an ending, a completion, a termination, or a seeing something in a totally different light leads us to a very important choice. So this eclipse, even though it is just a partial lunar eclipse, it is still kind of fated because it activates that south node in a really, really big way. And we must not forget the sun holding a grand trine with two minor power players, but still they add the blessing to this. Because whatever the sun illuminating the moon, right? The truth of it, that it reveals to us, even if that is uncomfortable, trine Pluto, the truth will always set us free and helpful, and be helpful in the long run, so to speak. So I would like to conclude my analysis here. Thank you everyone for listening. Wishing everyone a blessed eclipse. And remember that at a moment of an eclipse, the veil between the worlds is especially thin, and that is where the best thing to do is observe and reflect, not necessarily try and manifest stuff, but rather accept and take in what the divine ultimately gives to us. So thank you everyone. Thank you for all the love and support. Until next time, bye for now.